Welcome back to Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago. We've been having some discussions that need to be had right about now. We are going to be speaking with Commander Garvin Heerah, former head of the NOC. We are talking about dealing with crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning, Commander. How are you doing?
Morning, Dickie. Morning. Good morning to all our listeners and viewers.
When you see some of the headlines right now, be the newspapers, TV, what are some of the things that go through your mind with regard to dealing with crime?
Well, to be quite truthful, as a member of the citizenry, there's a sincere concern. And as everyone else, we'd be a bit worried to some extent. And there may be the trickle of fear as to what next, because you see rampant disregard for law enforcement, you see the killings, you see a certain type of crime, you see criminality on an increase, and for some reason or the other, there seems to also be a slow pace in how we're treating with some of these eventualities, and that concerns me, one, as a former member of law enforcement fraternity, and more so, it would concern me as what do we have waiting for us downrange, you know, how is this thing going to transpire? Are we going to get out of it? So there is some concern, and I continue to do my research, continue to stay very relevant in some of the strategies and solutions that could be applied, and I've produced quite a number of data, information that could offer some solution-based incentives.
Do you produce this and make it public? How can we get a look at it? How can people share it and be okay? Say, well, possibly these are some things we can assimilate.
Well, a number of my recommendations would have been promulgated in the public domain, in the media. I've been called on issues like this, and we would have had discussions and conversations. So it isn't say like Heerah has a solution to fix this. It is that I'm based on the fact that I may have institutional knowledge and a subject matter expert, I still offer my my offerings, so that at least we can look at some new strategies and mechanisms in addressing the issues that we face today.
Yesterday we spoke with Mtima Solwazi of the Citizen Security Program. Today is the 4th. It's supposed to be the final day for the program. Yes. You've worked with them.
Yeah.
How has that experience been?
Well, the Citizen Security Program has been has played an integral role with regards to national security. Because as I would always say, and you'd probably have heard me speak in other places, it is not just the law enforcement. It is not just the hard and fast policing, and more so that rigid sort of approach. There has to be a sincere social aspect of it. The Citizen Security Program brought that integration between law enforcement and the social programs, reached out to communities, recognized where some of the needs were, and also provided a sort of comfort and cushion to treat with the issue. So where there was breakdown in trust and communication, the Citizen Security Program would have provided that sort of bridge and engaged the community, more so embraced the community. And they had a series of programs specific to certain areas that they worked with. And the statistics are there to prove that, in fact, the program has been successful. I'm not too sure what is happening, if it's being closed down totally, if it's going to be reviewed and probably introduce some new systems. But the CSP is needed. It's an important aspect of the apparatus and should be utilized in tandem with what is happening with law enforcement. Because when you move in with law enforcement and you treat on the hard and fast issues of a community, and there are extractions and there are removals of certain key decision makers, certain influencers, that social program has to come in, that sort of continuity has to come in, so that we can bridge the gap and ensure that there is some sort of development for that community and a deviation away from criminal activity. And that is the role that the CSP has played over the past. As an end user, the National Operations Center utilized the CSP for that concept, and they were contributors to our national planning and the theater of operations that was conducted at the National Operations Center.
Is there any space for that social aspect to be inculcated a little more into organizations like the police service, so that you don't necessarily have to deal with crime at the end, or you talk about downrange?
Yes,
how do we look at it a little closer to inception and in a manner
well, definitely there is a role for that aspect of crime fighting as such, and we must not only see it as I would have said in the previous interview here on this station. When I did my research, my team, we looked at what was taking place in Latin America, South America, and the region, and there was a similarity in the type of threats and risks that we faced. And for instance, we came across what was known as the mano dura tactics of Latin America, which is the steel fist. It's not only that, and the police service is supposed to be equipped in their architecture with that sort of social soft program, the community policing and that type of stuff. Are we seeing that? Maybe it's something that needs to be reviewed and examined. And I've always said we should be humble enough to understand that, you know what, maybe we are at the point of engaging some sort of foreign support, looking at a model that worked and articulating with that model to see its application to our local domain. Because we have to look at what else can we do, because we are facing a number of issues. For instance, right on the tip of our lips would have been that whole walk through and show of strength that took place in Enterprise recently. And I'm saying, if it is that the Minister of National Security and the decision makers of the Commission of Police, Chief of Defense Staff et al. Had to show a strength in Enterprise, then we have an issue. Because by right, nobody is disputing the strength or the force of national security. And if the minister has to go down there to show strength, then what about the state agents? What about the actors? What about the law enforcement fraternity that is tasked with that responsibility? Then there would have been a failure, there would have been a fall down there. And therefore, we have to really examine now what is taking place, not only in Enterprise, but some of the key areas that are also showing that sort of exhibition. For instance, we saw something taking place in La Platte, in Maraval, Diego Martin. Some of the areas we find this sort of emergence now of that heavy crime and criminality and extent of psychopathology, the type of killings that are taking place. So it has to have now a meticulous approach into what is existing. There's a source. There's an issue that has caused that community to dwindle like that. And that involves what I'll call meticulous, systematic, predictive intelligence, where we have to utilize the architecture, the skill sets, and probably manage a new tradecraft to bring that information forward that can determine the decision-making of the future.
And I want to get back to that methodology that you're speaking about, but in hindsight being what it is,
yeah,
how could that walkthrough have been done a little differently?
Well, to be quite truthful, it should not be reactive. Hands-on leadership is applaudable, be it the public sector or the private sector. But hands-on leadership based on reaction and reactive then there's an issue. Therefore, what could have been done really was an examining of what was taking place, and long before it reached to this stage, there should have been an engagement with the community, working together to solve the problem. Because as it is there are, and I'm quoting what is being said in the media and what is on social media, warring factions. But then why are there warring factions in a small radius of a geographic? Something is causing that. There is an issue. And if you look deep into it historically, because you did say in hindsight, there has been an occurrence, a prevalence of illegal activity, illegal mercantile activity. And was this not detected by our forces? Was this not shown on the radar? Are there collaborative and consultative decision-making in the theater of operations specific to areas like Enterprise? What are the issues? Where are the weak points? Doing that whole national security SWOT analysis, the strengths and the weaknesses, what is happening, what are the opportunities, what are the threats inside of there? And then that should be able to determine. Now, there's something called 360-degree. The 360-degree approach enforces the minister, the chief of defense staff, the commissioner of police to make informed decisions by situational awareness. Previously at the National Operations Center, you would have been fed by information gathering from all facets of the nation, be it ministerial, be it corporate, and that information would have been received in a repository. And back to our pre-interview discussion, that data management would have been used to arrive at a product that could assist in decision making. That product would have determined, do you go down there or not? Or do you rely on the forces there to embrace the community and to work with them to get out of this? Because the cry of the community, be it Enterprise or whatever, is that we want help and we want to help fix this. But it cannot be a we them, it has to be an us. And therefore to work in that aspect, breaking walls and building bridges by the utilization of data and 360-degree information gathering for situational awareness is the way forward.
I ask you to reflect now, I'm asking you to forecast.
Yeah, sure.
Would putting a police station in that area deal with the issue of breaking walls and building bridges and fixing the problem?
If a police station has to be established in the Enterprise area, it has to be a police station with an approach that is going to work with the community, and not an approach basically to enforce and to lock up and to stop and search and that type of stuff. Yes, those are aspects of policing that is necessary. Yes, there are hard and fast times and we have to do that, but it has to be an open door policy that we want to work with you. You see, what is very important is the fact that establishing a police station is one thing, but if we rewind the tape a little bit, we would have been aware where police officers' lives and family members were threatened recently because they had in fact stopped a vehicle and there were some occupants of that vehicle, and maybe not what they did, but how it was done, caused an uproar, caused the burning of tires, caused the blocking of the road, and caused threats to be going out. So therefore, there is a distance between the community, certain members of the community, and law enforcement. And we as a nation, we as law enforcement, we as Ministry of National Security now have to realize what is causing this and fix that. So, okay, we're going to fast track and build a police station, but is it going to be the normality of the routine? It has to be something different, because the local domain, that culture of enterprise is different to an extent, because we see a type of ideology, we see a type of brazen sort of approach, facing the media, seeing things, coming out there, and therefore law enforcement has to not to take a step back in retreat, but take a step back in forecasting what is taking place in order to make the right decisions and moving forward. Can we work with you to solve this problem?
The police service has spoken to the fact that the image needs some work.
Yes.
In terms of working with communities, how do they repair that image and work with communities?
Well, it has to be done simultaneously, in that they have law enforcement duties to perform. They have tactical issues, intelligence gathering issues. I mean, commendably, there have been a series of operations that would have taken place. 5 people were arrested in Maraval recently, within the last 48 hours for that shooting and some other issues. There have been a Northern Division operation where we had a number of people being arrested. $14 million in marijuana was also seized and destroyed in the St. Joseph area. This is good, but looking at the whole aspect of policing today, the increase, the improvement, the development of that brand and image is imminent. It has to take place. And therefore, what the police has to do is to ensure that they are embarking on that program. There's a specific skill set that is being used to do that. And it is not just talk shows on once a week or press briefs by the police. It has to be a whole review and a cultural shift. It's a transformation. And we have to adopt the concept of transformation in the aspect of development. Because what happens in the life cycle of an organization is that you have an incline, then you have a plateau. And at that plateau, you can either decline or incline, but you have to institute measures. You have to bring new changes. You have to bring new strategies. You have to take risks and make decision making. Otherwise, we'll be at a plateau. And if we were to take a step back and look at what is taking place in the landscape, is national security, more so the police service, at a plateau? And if they are, then what are going to be the new strategies? So therefore, we are facing a situation where what are some of the models that have worked, not only in the Commonwealth, but within the region, and adopt some issues out of that and make it applicable to Trinidad and Tobago. If we don't do that, we're going to end up in issues.
But adopting some of those models and saying, okay, well, we have it on paper, this is what we are going to do, is one thing. What are some of the challenges to actually having those implemented and having that paradigm shift?
It's a big challenge, and the big challenge is the cultural shift, because the whole culture has to change, and that means a transformation. Back to the point that we're making, we have to understand the steps, the diagnostics, what is wrong, the intervention, what can be done, and the implementation. We fail at the implementation stage. There are a lot of policies and a lot of reports and reviews spiraled and properly well tabulated on shelves in the national security. Have we moved to the implementation stage? Even for government, for instance, decision makers. If you notice, you recognize that there have been some sort of pullback and some national security thing. I mean, full kudos to Minister Dillon. He's trying his best, but it seems like he's out there alone.
And on that is the point we actually need to stop. This is something we can continue, but
yeah.
Commander Garvin Heerah, thank you so much for your time. This is